So Jesus gives these two examples from the prophet Elijah and Elisha. And so at that, when the people in the synagogue heard this, they were all filled with fury. Now, was that their only option? No. What were other options? It depends on where we want to interject possible options. I would go back to where they said, "Isn't this the son of Joseph?" And what would have happened? And I'm sharing this not because I want to get on to people, the Nazareth people in the synagogue, but because I think it'll help me, for one, in dealing with controversial subjects today, in dealing with people who may be having difficulties with something. How to stay focused on what is the main object. And that is, in this case, that Jesus is saying that the Spirit of the Lord is upon him. We wonder what parts of the statement Jesus read from Isaiah upset or made the people question Jesus' identity. But how can any of it be argued? The Spirit of the Lord is upon all of us, or we would probably choose the word within. And we're anointed in baptism, and we're anointed to be good news people, particularly good news people to the poor. And we're called to transform society, to bring about liberty, to help people see who God really is and who we really are, to help those who are being oppressed and neglected to experience something of God's goodness. So, what if the people, instead of saying, "Isn't this the son of Joseph?" they said, "Jesus, you're blowing our minds. Can we talk about this a little bit? I mean, give us a little chance." It reminds me, and I think I've shared this before, one of my first theology classes was on the humanity of Jesus. And it was about the third class. And fortunately, we had this brilliant Jesuit in the class. And interesting that he was in a class taught by a Franciscan. But they're pretty well equal in terms of their brilliance. And anyway, this Jesuit said, "Can you just wait a minute? Because you are blowing my mind. Because all I can come up with is that if we're lucky, Jesus was a hometown boy made good. And if we're really lucky, he was really good." And the professor, much to my severe annoyance, and he was a tiny man, walked back and forth in front of the classroom and went to the lectern and shuffled some notes, looked around a bit, and finally he said, "Well, whatever you make of it," and went on. And it was such a struggle for me because I thought, this Franciscan priest celebrates liturgy, and it's obvious he believes in what he's saying and doing. And here he's speaking about a Jesus I never heard of. And that was the whole point. Get to know Jesus. And it was just so fascinating that he, as a professor, knew that he was not there to tell us what to think and what to believe. And so his comment, whatever you make of it, was absolutely the right one to say. Because our faith is something that is to be a personal choice. And we determine for ourselves who is Jesus. Because as we answer that question, we're also going to be answering the question, who am I? And we reflected on that this past Sunday, the reading from Corinthians. We're the body of Christ. We're to put on the mind of Christ. We're to be his being in the world today. So what kept these people from saying anything to help us, Jesus, understand how you see yourself this way? And how can you, who have grown up in our midst, say this about yourself? And it would have given Jesus the chance to say, well, what does it take for you to say the same things about yourself? And so the point being that I'm trying to make in a weird way is the words are as applicable to all of us as they are to Jesus. And for some of us, no, do the fancy works that you did over in Capernaum. Don't challenge us about what our responsibilities are. We're quite happy obeying as many laws as we need to in order to stay on the right side and the good side of God. So what's this thing about transforming society? Good grief. Yes, you're right, a prophet is not accepted, and we know from our synagogue studies many of the prophets had to suffer terribly. Is that what you want for us? And of course Jesus would have said, aren't you oppressed? Aren't you suffering now? Aren't you captive to this image of God that is so boxed in with all these rules and laws and the way that you think you're getting forgiveness for sins? Did you ever take a look at all that? Does that make really a lot of sense to you? And that really applies to us Catholics as much as it does to these people sitting in that synagogue in Nazareth some 2,000 years ago, because at least I grew up with you obeyed the commandments and the precepts of the church and whatever other rules were put. And the more you obeyed them, the better off you were. And besides that, I saw my task as get my soul to heaven. That was the only main thing in life. Where now, I'm connected somehow with Jesus. I'm really a member of his body. And I'm called upon to act like him.